In the golden savanna of Pride Rock, two lion cubs were born into royalty. Mufasa, the golden heir, and his younger brother Scar, originally named Taka. From birth, their destinies seemed carved in stone. One would rule, the other would serve. But what psychology tells us is that sibling dynamics in royal families create a unique psychological pressure cooker. Scar lived in what psychologists call the shadow of greatness, a phenomenon where individuals constantly compare themselves to a more successful sibling. Dr. Alfred Adler's theory of individual psychology suggests that feelings of inferiority often drive the most ambitious personalities. For Scar, every day was a reminder that he was second best, second born, second in line. The Pride Lands represented everything he desired, but could never possess through birthright. While Mufasa learned to lead with compassion, Scar developed what researchers call Machiavellian intelligence, the ability to manipulate social situations for personal gain. He observed, calculated, and waited. His trademark sarcasm wasn't just wit, it was a defense mechanism. Psychologists recognize this as reaction formation, where individuals express the opposite of their true feelings to protect their ego. Every joke at Mufasa's expense was Scar's way of coping with his own perceived inadequacy. But beneath the surface, something darker was brewing. The combination of high intelligence, royal entitlement, and chronic feelings of being overlooked created the perfect storm. Scar wasn't born evil. He was systematically shaped by circumstances that would challenge any mind. But there was something that nobody saw coming. The pivotal moment came with Simba's birth. Suddenly, Scar wasn't just second to his brother. He was third in line, pushed even further from the throne he believed should be his. Psychologically, this represents what trauma specialists call a narcissistic injury, an event that shatters one's self-image and sense of importance. Research shows that individuals with narcissistic tendencies often struggle with what's called succession trauma, the psychological damage that occurs when someone's expected inheritance or position is threatened. For Scar, Simba's arrival wasn't just an inconvenience. It was an existential crisis. The famous scene where Scar misses Simba's presentation ceremony isn't mere rudeness. It's avoidance behavior, a psychological defense against confronting his own displacement. Clinical psychology recognizes this as emotional numbing, where individuals disconnect from situations that cause unbearable psychological pain. During this period, Scar began exhibiting what psychologists call cognitive distortions, twisted thinking patterns that justify increasingly problematic behavior. He started viewing himself as the victim of an unfair system, rather than simply an unfortunate circumstance of birth order. His alliance with the hyenas represents a classic psychological phenomenon, in-group, out-group dynamics. By aligning himself with the outcasts of Pride Rock, Scar created his own power structure where he could finally be the leader. The hyenas didn't just offer military support, they provided the psychological validation he craved. The transformation accelerated as Scar began employing what psychologists term cognitive reappraisal, reframing situations to support his worldview. The Pride Lands weren't Mufasa's kingdom. They were territory being wrongfully withheld from the more deserving brother. And it was there that everything began to crumble. Be prepared. These two words reveal the sophisticated psychological machinery operating in Scar's mind. This isn't random villainy. It's what criminal psychologists call instrumental aggression, carefully planned actions designed to achieve specific goals. Scar's song reveals several key psychological elements. First, his grandiose self-perception. He genuinely believes he possesses superior intelligence and leadership qualities. This aligns with what researchers call malignant narcissism, a combination of narcissistic personality traits with manipulative and sometimes aggressive behaviors. Notice how he promises the hyenas a better life under his rule. This demonstrates charismatic manipulation, using charm and false promises to build loyalty. Studies show that many successful manipulators genuinely believe their own rhetoric, making them more convincing to others. The choreography of Be Prepared mirrors historical propaganda techniques. Scar employs what social psychologists call in-group favoritism, elevating his followers' self-worth by positioning them as superior to the current power structure. The hyenas aren't just outcasts. They're the true inheritors of the Pride lands. His strategic thinking becomes evident in how he manipulates Simba. The stampede isn't random violence. It's a calculated psychological operation designed to eliminate threats while maintaining plausible deniability. This demonstrates strategic empathy, understanding others' emotions well enough to exploit them. Scar's ability to maintain his composure while orchestrating chaos reveals what psychologists call emotional compartmentalization. He can separate his actions from their emotional weight, allowing him to function while planning devastating consequences for his own family. The most chilling aspect? His genuine belief that he's saving the Pride lands from Mufasa's weak leadership. This cognitive restructuring allows him to view himself as a liberator rather than a usurper. But the true monster was still sleeping. The moment Scar allows Mufasa to fall, everything changes. This isn't just fratricide. It's what psychologists call a moral disengagement event. Albert Bandura's research shows how individuals can disconnect from their moral standards through various psychological mechanisms. In those crucial seconds, Scar employs several moral disengagement strategies simultaneously. First, moral justification, convincing himself that Mufasa's removal serves the greater good. Second, displacement of responsibility. The stampede created the opportunity. He merely didn't prevent the inevitable. The psychological aftermath is equally fascinating. Rather than experiencing guilt, Scar demonstrates what researchers call moral equilibrium restoration, balancing his transgression by emphasizing his positive intentions for the kingdom. He genuinely believes he's solved a problem, not created one. His manipulation of young Simba reveals sophisticated understanding of childhood psychology. By implanting guilt and suggesting exile, Scar exploits a child's natural tendency towards self-blame. This isn't mere cruelty. It's psychological warfare designed to eliminate a future threat while maintaining his heroic self-image. The transformation is complete when Scar addresses the Pride. Notice his body language, his tone. He's not faking grief. He's accessing genuine emotions while simultaneously manipulating their interpretation. This demonstrates what psychologists call emotional hijacking, using real feelings to serve calculated purposes. What makes this moment terrifying isn't Scar's evil. It's his conviction that he's right. Research shows that the most dangerous individuals aren't those who know they're doing wrong, but those who genuinely believe their harmful actions serve a righteous purpose. The Pride's acceptance of his leadership validates his psychological framework. In his mind, he hasn't seized power through deception. He's been rightfully recognized as the superior leader he always knew himself to be. But what if he was right all along? Under Scar's rule, the Pride lands transform into a wasteland, but this isn't just narrative convenience. It's a perfect illustration of what organizational psychologists call toxic leadership syndrome. Research shows that narcissistic leaders often achieve short-term success while creating long-term systemic failure. Scar's leadership style exhibits classic patterns identified in studies of corporate and political failures. First, resource extraction mentality, focusing on immediate benefits while ignoring sustainable practices. The hyena's overhunting mirrors real-world examples of exploitative leadership that prioritizes quick wins over long-term stability. His treatment of the lionesses reveals what social psychologists term authoritarian control through demoralization. by systematically undermining their confidence and agency. Scar maintains power through learned helplessness, a phenomenon where individuals stop trying to escape adverse situations because they believe resistance is futile. The drought isn't supernatural punishment. It's symbolic of what happens when ecosystems are disrupted by poor leadership decisions. Environmental psychology research shows that sustainable communities require leaders who understand interconnectedness and long-term consequences. Scar's myopic focus on personal validation blinds him to these broader patterns. His increasing paranoia during his rule reflects what clinical psychologists recognize as power-induced stress syndrome. Studies of dictators and authoritarian leaders show that maintaining power through fear and manipulation creates chronic psychological stress, leading to increasingly erratic behavior. The most chilling aspect is how logical everything seems from Scar's perspective. Cognitive psychology research shows that once individuals commit to a worldview, they unconsciously filter information to support their existing beliefs. Every failure of his reign becomes evidence of others' inadequacy, never his own flawed leadership. This isn't madness. It's cold calculation mixed with psychological self-deception. Scar represents something far more dangerous than a crazy villain. He's a cautionary tale about how intelligence without wisdom, ambition without empathy, can systematically destroy everything it touches. It wasn't insanity. It was calculated coldness. When Simba returns, he faces more than just his uncle. He confronts the psychological wreckage of unchecked ambition. The Pride Land's restoration isn't just environmental recovery. It's healing from what trauma specialists call collective psychological injury, damage that affects entire communities. Scar's final moments reveal the ultimate psychology of his character. Faced with defeat, he immediately employs blame deflection, pointing to the hyenas as the real villains. This demonstrates what researchers call fundamental attribution error in reverse, attributing his own failures to external circumstances while claiming credit for any successes. His death represents something profound in psychological terms, the collapse of a constructed identity. Scar never truly knew himself beyond his role as the displaced brother. Without the throne to define him, without enemies to blame, he becomes psychologically hollow, a shell of ambition with no core identity. But Scar's influence doesn't end with his demise. Psychological research shows that toxic leadership creates generational trauma. The Pride had to rely on trust, cooperation, and healthy hierarchy. Simba himself carries psychological scars from his uncle's manipulations that influence his own leadership style. The real tragedy isn't that Scar became evil. It's that his intelligence and charisma could have served the Pride Lands brilliantly under different circumstances. Research on sibling dynamics in leadership families shows that second-born children often become excellent advisors, innovators, and strategic thinkers when their contributions are valued. Scar represents the dark side of human potential. What happens when natural gifts are poisoned by resentment? When intelligence serves ego instead of community? When ambition operates without conscience? He's a mirror reflecting our own capacity for self-deception and moral flexibility. Perhaps most disturbing, every society creates its own scars through systems that generate chronic inequality, resentment, and the psychological pressure of living in someone else's shadow. The question isn't whether Scar was evil. It's whether we're creating the conditions that manufacture our own villains. But maybe he wasn't the last of his kind. Scar teaches us that evil rarely announces itself with fanfare. It whispers justifications, wraps itself in righteousness, and convinces us that our worst impulses serve noble purposes. The most dangerous villains aren't those who embrace darkness. They're those who believe they're bringing light. Look around you. Who's living in whose shadow? Who's whispering, "Be prepared"? Because somewhere, another Scar is being born.